It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org from Louisville Public Media.
Consequence Podcast Network. Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out this episode in the series. Please hit the subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists, discover some new ones, know what's happening in the music world. You can do it at iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, Podchaser, NPR, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere that you like to get your podcasts from. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today I'm going to be talking with Volbeat frontman Michael Poulsen about their new record, Servant of the Mind. It's an album made after a prolific writing period during the first lockdown. The Danish artist will be discussing the heaviness of the record, what draws him to his dark lyrics, and taking some musical inspiration from Black Sabbath. Now, Poulsen's also going to tell us about the supernatural experiences he's had and how they made their way into this set, as well as covering the Cramps version of Roy Orbison's Domino and Metallica's Don't Tread on Me for the Blacklist collection, and what we might expect from their upcoming tour with Ghost. Let's do it. Talking Servant of the Mind, it's Kyle Meredith with Volbeat.
Hey, how you doing?
Congratulations on Servant of the Mind. What a powerful and very fun record that you've made.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I know it's probably the obvious question that, a lot of artists are getting right now, and I'm going to go ahead and ask it. This is an album that's born during a lockdown, during the lockdown. And what, if any, what effect did that have on the songs and the directions that you took for this record?
I'm not quite sure, but you can always try to analyze or think about it. But at the time when the pandemic was bursting out, we got a call from our management that the tours that we were supposed to attend was being canceled, and because of the pandemic. And then, we of course everybody stayed at home. And then, not long after, we got a new call that everything was canceled. It seemed like the pandemic was getting worse and was going to continue. So I just out of nowhere kind of just said, you know what, I'm just going to sit down and make a new album. And the management was going, perfect, that sounds like a great plan. And I said, oh, wait a minute, what did I just say? Because it will become a very serious thing. Normally we will know exactly when to start writing a new album and start getting inspiration. And it can easily take 1.5 years to write an album, because then you are on the road touring and you get home for a short while, working a little bit, and you go to the rehearsal room. But this time it was like, you know what, I'm just going to see what I got. And I just picked up the guitar, and I was just, exploding. And I don't know what happened, but, most of the stuff came out really heavy. And I think it almost kind of felt like starting all over again, because you knew that there was no way that you could get back on the road for a long time. And it felt like when you started and you just had yourself and your guitar in the rehearsal room, and there was no jobs because nobody knew who you were, and you were just having a lot of fun. And I did a lot of podcasts talking about my career, how I started playing death metal and how I started Volbeat. And I think a lot of those interviews gave me inspiration for the record. And for some reason, it just turned out heavier than we've been in a very, very long time. It's probably, if you look at our most heavy album. It felt really good because we had so much fun, me and Casper and John, rehearsing those songs. And we were only rehearsing twice a week, but every time we were rehearsing, I had a new song and the other guys are like, what's happening? You're on fire. So, there's nothing else to do. We can pretty much just have fun here in the rehearsal room, not think too much about anything else than just banging out these songs. And before we knew, I've done writing the album in like 3 months with all the music and all the lyrics. And we just went in to Jacob Hansen to record a live demo of the record. The live demo in the studio actually turned out to be really, 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 really good. We could almost release it as a demo, and maybe we will one day. But we decided to enter the studio again a little bit later, and we sent over and we only used like 2.5 weeks in the studio. And normally, you can easily be in the studio for months, but we're not really. Me and John and Casper is not fan of being in the studio for a long time, not even in the rehearsal room. Well, Rob is totally opposite. He can be in a studio in the rehearsal room his whole life, and that's just his way of working. He that's what he likes. But I just like to take a few takes and then take the best take out of 3, maybe, because it needs that energy and soul. And if you continue taking new takes, it's draining you, and it becomes quite boring. I've never been striving for perfection because I don't believe in it, and I find it quite boring. So suddenly we could just work like we actually did back in the days with some of the first records, and that was actually writing really fast and recording really fast. There was not too many layers. It was just the guitars and bass and drums and my vocals, and it went really fast. We kind of felt like starting all over again and being reborn, and it was almost like we asked ourselves, how did we wanted Volbeat to sound like if this was supposed to be the first record? And it turned out really great. And I remember when we were in the studio, even Jacob Hansen, our producer, said, this is totally, it feels like the beginning. And so, yeah, it totally does. We had so much fun doing it. But, as he said, you guys, you just, even though it has definitely similarities to what you did in the beginning, you can hear you're better songwriters, you're better musicians, and it just turned out to be a really awesome record. We're really proud of it. We end up sending the material to New York to Rob, our guitar player, and said, we just recorded a new album. We need some solos. And he was like, you did what? Yeah. We didn't have any time to sit here and wait for you to be able to travel to Denmark. And then we thought, then we don't have to be in the studio for 5 years because he likes to be in the studio for like forever. And so he was recording his solos in New York in another studio, and it turned out really good. I think it's some of the best solos he ever done, and so for some reason it actually turned out really great the way we wrote and the way we were recording. I think it actually brought the best out of everybody in the band the way we did it.
Well, you can hear that immediacy so much throughout the songs, and of course, like usual, you've got several styles kind of playing together all over the album, and the themes, what you're singing about, and the songs, kind of go in multiple directions. Although it's really fun to center in on those gothic and ghostly moments that happen, and knowing that you wrote all of this in one swoop. It seems like, for a lot of artists that might put you on, taking from similar parts, drawing the water from the same well a little bit. Like when you're writing about witch burnings from the 1400s, is that centering in just on something from the past, or is that also sort of as a parallel to today as you're writing it?
I think it's a mixture of both, because it's like, if I go back to when I was writing my first band, Domino, which were a death metal band, of course the subjects and the lyrics were a little bit more dark. And it was also a time where I was definitely flirting around with a lot of dark elements, and also in my personal life. So it was not only the music that kind of brought me back to being a young dude again. It was also in the way of writing, but at the same time also having so much more experience with certain objects, because I like to read, and I read a lot on tours. And back in days, I always had books with me. Now you can, of course, read a lot of books on your iPad. So I always sit down and read history or whatever gets my attention. So, and I've always been very much into, history and with outlaws and dark forces and stuff like that. So it was quite easy for me to write those kind of lyrics. And the witch burning in Lasses Birgitta is actually a true story. It's the first witch burning that happened in Sweden, and I thought it really suited the track because you can hear on the track. I know my inspiration was old Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio, and parts of it had also some inspiration from the time with Tony Martin, and I love Hitler's Cross, and Hitler's Cross has some really dark lyrics, and I thought, well, if this has the inspiration from old Black Sabbath, then you also need a lyric that suits the music. And I was just nerding around all my notes that I carry, and I could see that I've never used the lyric that I was working on, Lasses Birgitta. So I thought, that's definitely a fit, and it worked out great. So on this record, that's definitely some of the darkest lyrics I ever wrote, and at the same time, there's also a lot of light in them. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of, positive energy, and there's two things that goes hand in hand, and I think it also really kind of explains the album title as well, Servant of the Mind, because it's from we wake up, we go through the day and get to sleep, and we're dreaming. Our mindset can really take us some really dark places that we're not supposed to go, or dark moments in our life, and other times it can take you beautiful places where it just, really embrace life and the light it can give you. And I think that's a good balance in the lyrics. And at the same time, I wanted to capture an album cover that kind of was a little bit creepy, but also had some great depth in it. So you see this guy on the front cover who pretty much takes off his own face because he wants to look into his own mindset and see what's going on. And I kind of trying to put that down with the lyrics, and it turned out really good. Sometimes it can take you forever to sit down and write lyrics, and for some reason it went quite fast, just as the music. So it's very spontaneous, but it's spontaneous in a way where we're so proud, and it was not like we didn't try to make it fast. It was just the way it happened. Sometimes you can sit and struggle a lot of times with writing both the music and the lyrics, but this time it just went really, really fast. And so it was like, I also think it's something to do with, normally, as I said, it could easily take 1.5 years to write an album. You'll be touring and be back home, and then you'll be touring again. And while you're writing, you jump into those different bubbles of inspiration. And when you jump out of one bubble and you go on tour and you come home, it's not always easy to jump back into a bubble that you were working in 2 or 3 months earlier. It's like, no, I don't want to go there again. That's not where I'm at. That's not my mindset right now. Where this time I just stayed in one bubble until I was done, and that actually worked really well. So for me, it was great just to stay at home, stay in one bubble, right to the very end, and it turned out great.
Well, that bubble, as I was talking on, especially just being able to write in that short amount of time and the way the songs work together in those stories. I mean, as we were talking about Witch Burnings for the 1400 and the parallel to today, I find that a little bit, or at least as a listener, I hear that a little bit maybe on The Devil Rages On, because that's a song for me that does arrive in the present. And maybe that's one of the darker moments that you're talking about. Like, are you able to find light, when you've got a title like that?
Absolutely. It's just those kind of subjects and way of thinking has just been, the part of my life since I was a young kid. I just always really been fascinated by dark stuff, dark reading, or dark forces and spiritual stuff. It's always been a huge part of my life. And I just decided to leave some of it in the lyrics this time. And because sometimes you have certain experiences in your life, I know that I had, that seems a little bit out of this world because it becomes a spiritual thing. And I remember even as a kid having some really strange experience that I couldn't explain, and I was trying to keep it for myself. I think it was like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And the same moment you start talking about it with your friends when you're just a young kid, they look at you as a freak. And so I didn't want to go that path again, because I just wanted to stay like a normal kid. So I didn't say anything. And through my whole adult life, I experienced so many weird stuff, which I call spiritual experiences. Every time I move into a new house, the first 3 months, there's a lot of strange things happening, and it's just so frustrating because I've been moving a lot, and it's like I just know, saying, "Oh, this is going to be a fucking nightmare." The first 3 months. And my fiance, she said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "It's just weird things always happens when I moved into a new house." And when she started experiencing it too, she got a little bit freaked out. So we actually have to call the media. We have to cleanse the house for 2 days. And the house seems fine now. And it also has a really scary story, because the people who have been living in this house before, there was 2 guys, and at that time they ruled the whole city. They owned every club in the city and every discotheque, and they were also dealing with some outlaw bikers and stuff. And one of the guys ended up killing the other one, and actually, what do you call it? Removed all his body parts and buried him somewhere here in the city. So there was a lot of rumors that he decapitated the guy in this house, but that's not really for real. But this house has a lot of stories. But the media told that every time that I moved into a new house, I'll take dead people with me, like spirits that's not aware that they have to step over to the other side. So when I bring in these spirits in a new house, they have a conflict with the spirits that's already living in the house, and that's what's leading all these things that happens while we live in the house. So we had, as I said, a media stepping into the house for 2 days to cleanse it, and after the second day, everything got back to normal. And my fiancée, she's more relaxed now, because she never experienced anything like that until she met me, and the media also told, this is something that only happens when you're in the house. Your fiancée doesn't have to be worried that it's happening when she's here alone with the kids or anything. It happens the same second you step into the house. Then there's a conflict in the spiritual world and the house. So this media told me a lot of things since actually as experience that I had since I was a kid, and there's no way she could know anything about it because I hadn't told anybody about it. So she was the real deal, and it also inspired me to write certain lyrics where I don't leave everything out on the table. There's some few lines here and there in between, because it is quite personal. But it's as I said, the dark thing has been around me for so many years. The media even told me that when I was 13, a guy who died in a car crash stepped into my body. His soul stepped into my body, and I've been carrying around with his soul for so many years that he's also been making a lot of noise, which totally makes sense because there's been certain times where I felt very confused about what was going on. So it's been quite interesting to have this media in the house for a few days.
Yeah, and some people just more sensitive and more in tune to that, as yourself is. I'm sure to some point that is exhausting, but I will say it has been interpreted to some fine art that you've made. So at least there's that silver lining that's a part of it all.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to quickly ask about the couple of the covers at the end of the record for the bonus versions. Specifically, you take on Roy Orbison's Domino as the Cramps did before you. What was it about that one that spoke to you this time?
It's just since I was very young and living at my parents' house. We've been listening to so many different kind of music. My parents also love music from the 50s. That's where I got all my 50s stuff from. And I discovered the Cramps. We had a little bit more sick twist to the rockabilly stuff. So I guess that's why they call it psychobilly. But I was just always really happy about a lot of their songs. And Domino was just one of them. And I knew one day I wanted to cover one of their songs. And since we were really quick about recording the album in the studio, we had a few days left. And we said, let's just knock off some cover songs for the deluxe edition of the record. And I just said, guys, I gotta cover the Cramps songs. I really would like to rehearse, and they were really excited about that too, because they all liked the Cramps, so that was an easy one. I think we end up putting 3 Cramps titles on the table, and we just chose Domino's to be the one that we wanted to record. And it was actually only a few days after that Casper said, "Are you aware of that? It's actually original a Roy Orbison song," because he's a big Roy Orbison fan. Mm-hmm. I said, "Really?" "Yeah, it is." "Oh, wow. Well, that's great too." Roy Orbison's quite cool, so so that turned out really good.
Did I know the Metallica cover isn't on the record? It was for the Blacklist tribute. You guys did "Don't Tread on Me," but was that sort of recorded around all of this same time?
Yeah, that was actually the last thing we did in the studio, because while we were actually about to record cover songs, because we record all the material for the album, our management called and asked us if we wanted to be part of the anniversary album, and said, it's quite funny, at this moment we're actually working on cover songs because all our own songs are already recorded, so it was the right time, and we said, we'll think about it, because it's let's be honest, it didn't make sense for us just to play a Metallica song the way that Metallica is playing it, because that's when people would rather hear Metallica. So I told the other guys, let's see if we can find a song on the album that we can give our own twist. You know, let's not take one of the songs that are one of the huge hits because, you know, I don't want to touch it. So when we heard "Don't Tread on Me," I said, you know, I can totally put a Volbeat swing into that song, and I just went to the hotel and sit there for a couple of hours until I had the right version, and we hooked up in the studio again, and it turned out to be a really, really decent cover song.
I love what you guys did with it, and the Cramps covers too, and the other ones as well. And so I'll wrap this up. You're heading on a co-headlining tour next year with Ghost. Do you find that there will be moments when you are able to bring these songs out? I mean, are you guys thinking about what that set list is going to look like?
Of course, you know, at that time that the new record is going to be out. It's out the 3rd of December, so of course we will be picking a good handful of songs from the new album, and very soon we will start rehearsing the set for the U.S. tour. So the only problem is going to be like which ones to pick, because we want to play the whole record, but I guess there will be shows where we play a certain amount of songs from the new record, and then the next night we'll play some other songs from the record, so we actually end up playing all of them. So yeah, let's see.
Well, I look forward to definitely catching one of those shows. And Michael, in the meantime, Servant of the Mind is so great what you guys are doing. So thanks for continuing to do what you do, and thanks for taking the time to talk about it today.
Thank you.
This has been really great.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the great compliments. And yeah, have a good day.
Big old thanks to Michael Poulsen. Volbeat, the new record is called Servant of the Mind. Big thanks to you as well for checking out the episode in the series. Hit the subscribe button before you get out of here to keep up with all the interviews. 3 brand new interviews every single week, wherever you get podcasts from. That does include YouTube for the video versions as well. After that, head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews. That's Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots. That includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all 3 of them at Kyle Meredith. And I do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time. Consequence Podcast Network.
It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org, from Louisville Public Media.